We looked at Shutter Island as one of our influences for our teaser trailer. What we noticed when we watched it was that the music and the titles coincide with each other. Now, when we applied our soundtrack, we realised that the titles and the music didn't go with each other in terms of beat, but the theme of the titles and the theme of the film went well with each other. We also noticed in Shutter Island that the use of dramatic titles. We tried to recreate this by having sort of increasing size and sort of flicker to add sort of detail to it, as well as adding a background which followed the theme of our film. We also noticed that it had a variety of footage from the film in a sort of rapid sequence, and our film contained quite a few clips and a lot of it was quite fast paced, so it did again follow Shutter Island.
When doing our titles, one of the ones that first inspired us was the 7 titles, and this was on a black background, which we kind of quite liked, didn't we? And then they flickered and then changed, and we liked the idea of a flickering title, so we tried to kind of experiment with that. But when it came down to it, we decided that our film didn't really fit the kind of theme. Like, it's not a horror or a thriller, it's more of like a psychological kind of one that makes you think. So we decided that the flicker wasn't right for us, but then we started to experiment with other ones instead.
When looking at posters, we looked at a film called The Ides of March. We liked this poster because it had 2 faces of the main characters put together, and we thought we could use this as Emily's face, maybe one of her awake and one of her asleep. We also considered half her face underwater and half on land of her face. We also thought that the use of one colour, such as the blues in this picture, was good because we could use a range of small colours such as oranges like we used on our poster. The picture is simple, but it also catches your eye because we first saw this poster on an underground and we all stopped and looked at it, so that's where we got our inspiration, because we thought it could catch other people's eyes.
Another film that influenced our trailer was Killer of Light. Again, it had fast-paced shots to reveal some of the story, but to confuse you because there's so many in such a random order that you don't really know what's going on, but you sort of get a feel for the type of the film. And a lot of the shots revealed a lot about the plot, but ours didn't quite show the plot as much as Killer of Light did. So our rapid sequence sort of showed clips of the film, but not in the order that you'd expect them to come in. The music created with this Killer of Light had tension, which was a theme of our film, when we wanted to have the titles with a soundtrack of the one that followed our film. Although ours was soft and light, it also was quite tense because it sort of followed the theme of being a psychological thriller. And another thing we noticed with Killer of Light is that a sense of pace was created through the music and the sequence of shots. So ours had the pace when we speeded things up and slowed things down. So we created this not through the music but through the text and the pace of the shots.
Another film we looked at for titles was Intimate Enemies. This had the idea of having kind of a black screen and the titles emerging, and we really liked the idea of that. We thought it was quite subtle and looked really nice. We also liked that it actually had kind of text going on behind it, and we tried to experiment with kind of laying text over the top of each other and seeing if we liked that, or like laying pictures over each other. But we decided in the end to go with what we went with, which was kind of more subtle, but we did use the effect of having them appearing on the screen.
Again, for poster ideas, we looked at Gangs of New York, which has 3 pictures overlapping each other, which are the main characters at the top. We then also has the American flag and the New York skyline, which we thought had a good use of merging, but it was quite subtle, which we liked, and we thought we'd like a subtle poster of pictures merging together, so you couldn't really work out what it was. We found it effective with the New York skyline, which was only an outline and not a picture, but it also stands out on the American flag, which we liked.
Another film influence was Black Swan. It had the same genre as our film, so we sort of looked at this quite closely to see how they portrayed psychological thriller. and how we could use this in ours. The voiceover in Black Swan inspired us to do a voiceover over our teaser trailer, in which we got Emily to speak about definitions of reality and dreams. The titles in Black Swan are sharp and striking, so we again tried to show this through our titles, which were bold in white and flickered and increased in size. And much like a lot of the films that inspired us, this had a rapid sequence of quick shots, and we did try and include this, and I think we did well, especially with some shots of it. So we did take influence from this. And you get a sense of two personalities portrayed in the Black Swan, such as the black and the white swan, which is similar to the shots we had of Emily laughing and crying. So Black Swan was probably our main influence in terms of actually taking ideas from it and trying to translate it in our own terms into our teaser trailer.
Another film we looked at for titles was Paranormal Activity 2. This was another one that flickered, so we kind of changed that and used it as more of a subtle growing of the titles. But they also used the two kind of really stood out, and we liked the idea of when our titles are coming onto the screen and like appearing, of some of them looking kind of bigger and smaller again, which we used for our actual film. It also had kind of a distortion to it, which we really liked, and we tried to kind of incorporate that in our own way with having the text coming in slowly.
The next poster we looked at was the Imaginarium of Dr. Panassus. This poster included the main character as the focus, which we liked her positioning because it was unique, as she was the big thing on the poster and everything around her was seen as small. Her facial expression was quite confused, as if she didn't know where she was. The text is bold and creative, and they use lots of different fonts, which we liked, but the thing we didn't like about the poster is that it's a completely different genre to our film, and it was really bright and colourful, which we found that our film, because it's more art house, we wanted it to be more subtle and like darker colours.
The final influence on our teaser trailer was The Butterfly Effect, which again had the same genre as ours, of a psychological thriller. The Butterfly Effect used a voiceover as well, which we incorporated into our teaser trailer, as well as a series of slow motion shots. And we created a sense of calm in our teaser trailer through the water scenes being slow motioned. The Butterfly Effect also had close-ups of the main characters in a rapid sequence, and we had close-ups of Emily when she's laughing and crying, and again on the train, and so we showed this through our teaser trailer as well. It also had slow and emotive music, which we had through Molly singing and the altered theme track to Lana Del Rey. And the film was quite atmospheric in The Butterfly Effect, which we translated into our film, having quite an atmospheric, calm, but clearly showing a sense of mental distress in Emily.
So these were the beginnings of our titles that we started to look at. So this was kind of experimenting with all the things we'd looked at. So we decided we definitely wanted white, and we wanted, you can see on like this one down the bottom, it's more of a kind of vivid, kind of blurry, but it looks really like clear still. So we quite liked that idea. This one we decided was kind of too dark, but we liked the idea of something that started off quite thin and small and would grow. This top one was one that we were quite close to going with, but I don't think our actual one's on here, is it? No, so these are all, oh yeah. But so these are all just kind of experiments, but they kind of led us to what we were going for, and all of these kind of,
Very similar.
yeah, they are. They're all kind of the same effect, but
Different sizing and shades
yeah,
and effects.
and then, yeah, it just led us to what we got in the end.
The last post inspiration we had was the rabbit hole. The things we liked about this was the positioning of the titles down in the far corner. We actually zoomed in on this and copied the format of their credits. For example, the way they laid out where the actor's name is, and the director and editors and things like that. We like the way that Nicole Kidman is seen in many different ways. And also the poster we found isn't easy to make out what it's about, which we liked, so we thought we'd use that in our film, because when people look at our poster, it kind of gives a mysterious, it's quite mysterious, and the picture is rather confusing, so you're not sure what's going on in the film.
So this is one of our final titles, and you can't really tell, but this is actually one of, behind it is actually one of the photos that we took of Emily underwater, and we really liked the photos as they came out because they were all quite, mysterious, like you said. You couldn't really tell what they were of, but they looked really nice and quite dramatic. So we used pictures behind all our titles, because when we first wanted to take the pictures, we wanted them within our film somewhere, and it seemed right to put them behind the titles once we saw them and make the titles a bit more exciting and a bit more dramatic. So that was one of the final ones, and this is, can't really tell, but there's Emily's foot there. So it's quite subtle, I think, and when you look at our film,
you can see it more clearly.
Yeah, definitely. Also, our final thing that we made was our magazine cover, and we used, we made a stylist, not a stylist, what's it called?
Studio.
We made a studio, and so we used Studio Magazine as the inspiration, really, and tried to copy the text.
We went on websites such as Identifont to find the fonts that they used on their front covers,
Yeah.
and we looked at the backgrounds that were a current theme in all their magazine covers and tried to incorporate this into ours.
Yeah, we looked at their layouts as well to make sure we were getting it all right, and then we decided to have Emily not in character, because we looked at the other ones and one of them was in character, wasn't it? But the rest of them weren't, and we quite liked the idea of, because our film's quite serious, seeing Emily in a slightly different way.
We also used the inspiration we used for our poster of the Doctor and the Imaginary Parnassus thing, as the position of the woman was quite unique. So we used that in our magazine by having Emily in a untraditional sort of style, but quite organic and how it would be.
Yeah, she looked quite natural, didn't she? Kind of just laughing and
we
stuff.
preferred Studio Magazine to all the other film magazines because it's a women's film magazine in the UK, which is what our film is. It has a woman in it, and it's
Made by women.
Yeah, made by women, and it's in the UK. So we thought this was the best thing to use. But they're quite a new magazine. They're only done online, so we thought this was also unique for us to use. But there was only 4 magazines they'd had in the past, so we didn't have much inspiration to go by. So we just copied exactly what they'd done in the past.
Yeah, but I do think we made it our own as well.
Yeah,
I think when we look at it, it follows their theme, but I think we've done our film justice at the same time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good?
Yeah.